Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. This is episode 206. Today's guest is TShane Johnson. TShane was an enlisted Marine serving 4 years before leaving and starting college, he says, for one day. And then he started work in the mortgage industry where he made over $1 million his first year in the business at age 23, went on to earn millions more for his companies. He started 3 companies, and then in 2008, it all came crashing down around him like it did everyone else who was tied to that market. Living out of his car for a while, he restored everything again, went on in that industry to other great heights, and then got inspired to do things for veterans out there and for homeless. And he has hiked, ran across the country multiple times, set records with ultramarathons, and has become also a motivational speaker, corporate sales coach, and best-selling author. You've got to know that an individual who's done all of that has a chip on his shoulder. And TShane has plenty of chips on his shoulder, and one of which is proving that he can come back. And he was put in the hospital when he was riding his motorcycle while still an enlisted Marine, was taken out intentionally by a gang and slammed into a brick building. He lost 4 of his 6 pints of blood, flatlined 3 times after walking to a fire department to get assistance. This is a man that doesn't quit. You're really going to enjoy this interview. Please check out TShane at his websites and get a copy of that book. Well, heroic investors, wait till you hear this one. I've got TShane with me, TShane Johnson, a former Marine, or I guess always a Marine. So a Marine who served 4 years on active duty. He has some amazing stories. And so we started, as I always do, talking about this off air. And I said, whoa, TShane, stop. I need to get this on air. So here we are. First and foremost, welcome, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. So TShane, take us back to, you can go before Marine Corps if you want, but at least go back to Marine Corps and walk us through the craziness that is your life.
Yeah. So for one, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited about it. I always love to connect with other veterans and share our perspective. So it's very exciting to be able to do that. Probably pretty typical for an enlisted Marine. So I grew up in a small town in Gulf Coast of Florida, Arcadia, a rodeo cow town. I'd love to tell you that I had that true patriotic when I served my country. I just don't think that was the case. I had to get away from my dad. He had worked me entirely too hard growing up. So I thought the Marine Corps would be easier than working for my dad. Grew up on a 365-acre cattle ranch, and was one of those up at 4 a.m, building fence, working cows, all day, every day, hustle.
So far, we're flowing on parallel lives here. I was on a big dairy farm, and my one goal to join the service was to get out of Illinois.
Get out of it. You got it. Yep. So pretty stereotypical. So I went through high school. I wouldn't say I was a great student. My father was a single dad. I had a blind handicapped brother and my younger sister. So my dad was trying to do all of that. He also worked for the prison system. So that was kind of his true day job, to help support as much as I could to play a role in the family. But I think my time came and ended up joining the Marine Corps at 17. And 3 days later after graduation, I got out of there and went to Parris Island. So that was, I always say, when I give a lot of my speeches, there's 2 times you were born, the one your mom gave you and the one your drill instructor gave you. So it was my second birth. And I was very fortunate. I was surrounded by, I was in 3rd Battalion, platoon 3064, and I graduated honor grad out of my class. I was number 1 out of my class. picked by my peers, which was pretty cool. And then my Marine Corps career did really well. I was kind of the poster child. I was meritoriously promoted 3 times. I made it to the fleet. I was already a lance corporal by the time I even got to the fleet, and ended up with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines in 29 Palms, first duty station. And I served about a year and a half there. And then I went to Okinawa. I attempted to go for 5th Force Recon at the time, which was out in Okinawa. I think that was time during when the military was kind of really downsizing and cutting funds quite a bit in the Marine Corps. So they wanted to go to battalion recon versus force, and then I would have to stay in Okinawa. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go back to the States. So I went back to the States with 340 29 Palms and ended up took the NDOC and passed and went to 1st Reconnaissance Battalion in Camp Pendleton. So I served with 1st Recon for about a year. Of course, that was 9802, so 9/11 was right around that time. Just before, while I was going through with 1st Recon, they were part of it was an OJT program. So you didn't go to the normal BRC or ARS 3-month school. At that time, they just didn't have enough funds and billets to do it. So they kind of did like an OJT program. So they were running us new guys through it. And I think they gave us 3 days off. And we were right in the middle of pre-scuba. So the operators, a lot of the guys were getting ready to go to combat dive. So they were taking all of us newbies and running them with them. So we were doing pre-scuba. So we were just pool work all the time. So it's just best shape of your life you could possibly be in.
And pool work, you said. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Pool work. Yeah. They're just putting us in the pool every single day. So they gave us about 3 days off, and it was either stay in the barracks and get hazed by a couple of corporals, or in a good way, or get out and go hang out with one of my buddies for a couple of days. So I left the base, went off the back of the base, and at the time there were some gangs that were targeting military off the back of the base, and a car had hit me on my motorcycle about 45 miles an hour. I caught the corner of a brick house at 45 miles an hour across my chest, broke my collarbone, shoulder blade, ribs. All my ribs shattered, punctured all my major organs, spleen, liver, kidney was sliced. They 350 size-hole pieces went into my lungs. They robbed me, kind of left me there for dead. My left bicep was lacerated, and I ended up bleeding out 4 pints of blood out of 6 pints I think your body totally holds. So they didn't help me, so I walked 2 blocks to a fire station, taking 1 full breath every minute. And I got there, got down on a knee, was bleeding out all over the place. They happened to have a doctor on site. Anyways, long story short, they had a helicopter come in. I died 3 times, flatlined out 3 times. They brought me back 3 different times, lost 54 pounds in 2 weeks. And then I was in CCU, ICU for probably 4 months on a civilian. They couldn't put me back on the military base because of my lung capacity. And then, let's see, so about 6 months of that, I actually went back to my unit, completely healed about 6 to 8 months later, was back with Recon, just kind of finishing up, healing up. And then, of course, 9/11 happens. And my unit was deploying to Hawaii to get ready to get prepared to head overseas. I was sitting there, and I remember the battalion general was in the gym all the time. So I was just trying to get myself back into shape, doing the pool, hitting the gym. And he started talking to me, and he says, you sound too smart to be a Marine. What are you doing in the Marine Corps? And I said, well, I wasn't smart enough in school, I said, and he says, well, there's a difference between IQ and EQ. And he says, I think your EQ might be a little higher. He says, you need to get out and go do something. He says, you could, or either, become an officer and lead Marines or do something more, because I just think you're in the wrong spot. So I figured, well, I'd beat death 3 times. It kind of earned my stripes for that. So I thought I'd give it a go. So he signed off on my paperwork to go to school. So I got out. I attempted to go to college for 1 day. I think the teacher at the time showed up late. I was kind of sitting in the room just looking at this going, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. This doesn't work with my style. So I went and applied for jobs. Back then, you'd fax resumes, so I was just sending out faxes. And my girlfriend at the time was like, you need to get a real job rather than working at the gym or doing something. So I ended up landing a job working in the mortgage industry. I honestly had no clue what it was. I went to interview the first day, and they said, what are you doing now? So, well, I'm selling gym memberships, working like 100 hours a week, just doing my thing. I kind of like it, not that big of a deal. And I liked it because I could wear a tie. I could go and wear a tie, look nice. My account was negative, like $187, didn't have a whole lot of money. I spent the rest of the money I had on trying to look decent for the interview. I remember my good friend, I was actually just chatting with him last night. My boss at the time, he said, you know what? He says, come in here and sit down for a second. I said, all right. So he had another guy come in, and he puts this piece of paper down in front of me, and he says, you see that? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, you see that number? And I said, yeah, it says $66,000. And I was like, man, you made that in a year? I was like, holy cow, you didn't go to college. You're here. You're making $66,000 a year. I was like, this is amazing. What do I have to do? And he says, no, that was last month. And I was like, I don't even care if this is illegal at this point. I was like, for $66,000 a month. I was like, you guys are sitting in the air conditioning on the phones. I was like, I'll give it a go. So he says, well, we'll give you a shot. So I joined. I ended up actually making like $68,000 my first full month in that business after training. It was an interesting change for me because, we grew up what people would consider relatively poor and struggling. And then I understood the concept of what I was defending for so long, the ability to be able to be a part of this country that's so great that if you could work really, really hard, you can be compensated for it, which the military is, it's not like that. It's a little different of a platform. You can work really, really hard and your paycheck still is the same. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the aspect of putting in the work. So then I just knew it was really simple. I just had to outwork everybody in the room. I didn't have to be smart. So that's how I felt like I made my first real money, is I just kind of went after that with a vengeance. And look, when you've died 3 times and you've been through what I've been through, and I already know that the other side's good to go, right? I already know that I'm going to be okay. Life's going to be all right. Things are going to move on that side. So why not take a little bit of risk out here in this world? So I just kind of lived by that philosophy and went at it. And it was perfect timing, perfect opportunity. I did really well. And I was 23, 24. I was probably managing at least $250 million a year in sales. And then over a course of quite a few years in the business, a few $1 billion. 26, I actually went out on first opportunity to be an entrepreneur for 2 years. And then 2008 happened, the recession happened, and I just got kicked in the teeth really well with that one. Good life lesson, good humbling moment.
That's incredible. So how much money had you made before 2008?
Oh, I don't know, a few $1 million probably.
As you were a millionaire, you told me off air by like 23, right?
Right.
After
yeah,
having
that first year I went at it pretty hard. I think I cleared just over $1 million that first year.
And you made a point that I made just this last week when I was traveling and speaking, that for all of her faults, this experiment that we started 250 years ago with some really, really brave people in a small, a few small build. They took 4 years actually to do it, but they created this thing called the Constitution that focused on life, liberty, and property, and it enables us to go do exactly what you just explained. I learned the exact same thing, that the military is incredible, but a fixed income with a ceiling does not necessarily create the capabilities, the resources that we want to go out and actually, do the huge things we're going to do in this world.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that'll take us down a completely different rabbit hole from the message I send now. Because during my tour this year, I actually speak at Independence Hall. It's one of my stops to probably, I think, a few thousand people. And it's interesting to me, the perception of America today, right? Like, especially from the military community, I send a completely different message. So the narrative of the veteran community now is so weak, it's ridiculous. And I can't speak for other branches because I didn't serve for them, but I know being a Marine was something that the day I got my EGA, I cried. I didn't cry because I was weak. I was cried because it was the first time in my life where I was able to work really hard and earn something that very few people will ever try. Not later in life did I understand what that meant, right? And when I was old enough and went through and understood about, God, core, and country, and really what it stands for, until I had my daughter, what this great country provides, and obviously making the money that I did and having the opportunities. I mean, these are all things I think you have to go through in order to appreciate what it is to be an American, not just serve your country. I think that's one small portion of it. But, the narrative now is that, everything is given to a veteran, because they served. And I absolutely hate that thought process. I hate it with a passion, because I think we're at an advantage. We're at a massive advantage. Especially Marine Corps, the 14 leadership principles of an NCO, we've been given 270 plus years of one of the largest dominating corporations in the entire world of leadership, knowledge, and training passed on to us. I mean, we are laser focused. The fact that we're not out there and people aren't complaining that we're just not dominating the business sector, or that we're not out there just crushing entrepreneurship, or that every time you turn around it's another veteran doing another success. Instead, it's another veteran that's, I need something, or give me something. And there's a few small pools of leaders, and nowadays that should be us. That should be the veteran community. We should be walking out into the country and not pointing one finger and saying one person's going to make it right. We should be doing exactly what we did with our units, and saying that we know that it takes all of us in order to do it, and we have to lead from the front, and we're just not doing that as a whole. And I blame that on the fact that if we're going to complain about it, we have to lead, not lead, follow, right? So to me, the idea is that if I'm going to complain, I better do something. And if I can do something and at least show others it can be done, then at least then I can stand up a little higher and say, well, if I'm doing it and I'm a knucklehead, then I know that you can get out there and do it with a lot more of the resources you have. So the military is an advantage, it's not a disadvantage. It's actually something that I was having this conversation with somebody, and somebody says, the veterans should get something for free and everybody should get everything for free and everything. And I said, actually, that already exists. I said, you want free college? Join the military. You want healthcare for life? Join the military. You want a pension? Join the military. I said, that program already exists. It's been around for quite some time. It's actually a great program. For 4 years, do you know how much I get for that? I mean, I couldn't go work for Verizon, tattoo Verizon on my arm, and walk out to a pool somewhere, and someone come up and says, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for working for Verizon."
Right.
I mean, they're not. It's an amazing thing being part of the military, and I just feel like we're not taking advantage of it as much. So, anyways, soapbox speech.
Yeah.
But.
So I love the fact that clearly every veteran out there and every citizen out there would probably say that they love the attitude towards the military, what companies do for the military as compared to what it was in Vietnam, right? Like I was a kid in the Vietnam era, and my boss at the Naval Academy was a 3-star admiral, and he joined right near the end of the Vietnam War, and it was still draft time, and he was like, "This is horrible, the way people treated him, but also the quality of the people in the military." So obviously much better, but I think what you're saying is, and as opposed to becoming entitled for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a gift, not something that I should owe. And people say, "Thank you for your service." Like, what should thank you? Just be the American worth serving. I mean, that's why I did it. I mean, I have free college. I've got free healthcare. I've got free things. If I get hurt, I got workman's comp for life. I've got all of these things, I've got free medical. I mean, it just blows my mind when you think about the things that I've done for just 4 years. That's a heck of an ROI for an organization. There's not one corporation out there that's going to do that forever. And then what kind of person would I be? What kind of Marine would I be if I just sat on the sidelines and just said, well, that's it for me. I'm not going to contribute back to society or protect the civilian population or show more veterans that, listen, you don't have to be a product of that environment. You can do more.
Absolutely. So I would like to go back to the next thing. So 2008, a little bit of it, you said it's a tough time in your life. I would argue that it's a little bit more than a tough time in your life. To dig a little more into that and tell that part of the story.
Yeah, so I think with anything you have challenges, right? So probably humbling is a little better. I had 2 beautiful homes, had a nice car. I wasn't married, I didn't have any children at the time, but when with money comes a lot of people out of the woodwork. So everybody needs help, or everybody's got a story or something. So, you're spending a lot of time and your money helping those people. And then when you don't have anything, you get a lot of time to reflect. So I spent about 2 years going through that and living out of my car. My sister, God bless her, I love her, but she was just going through some really tough time, and she had my younger nephew. Her husband was an Army vet. He committed suicide and ended up hanging himself with fishing wire in the back of the house in a little shed, and left my nephew fatherless. And my sister obviously couldn't handle it very well, went into a completely different direction. So here I was, pretty much homeless for the most part, hardly had any money, and was taking care of an infant, trying to do the best I could with that. And again, one minute you're doing great, the next minute you're getting kicked in the teeth. At the time, I was pretty angry about it, but I just went back to, I think, the things that taught me in the Marine Corps is embrace the suck and figure it out. And through some trials and tribulations, about 2.5 years later, I ended up building 3 more companies that did about $40 million a year in sales out of the back of my car, honestly using free Wi-Fi at Dunkin' Donuts. I always say if I ever get the opportunity to partner with Dunkin', it's going to be the best thing in my life, because that free internet saved my life. It wasn't just the dollar snack wraps, and everything else. It was just the opportunity to be able to go in there and use my computer and use that resource to be able to do more with it. So, and then that was pretty much that portion of after 2008.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you were still in the mortgage industry though, or did you exit from that?
Yeah, so I exited for that from 2 years because the licensing changed because of the Frank-Dodd Act. So there was a lot of things that happened. Of course, my credit got shot. So, there were a lot of requirements and things that played that I couldn't get back in. I had to really work hard towards that. So it took me 2 years because one of my companies was another mortgage company. And I had to actually sit in front of the NCCOB in North Carolina with my nephew. I had no transportation. It was just some crazy stories, crazy times. Yeah, it was crazy. I remember them saying, well, in order for you to get your license, you're going to have to pay back these collections. I'm like, well, I barely have enough food to eat. And if I don't have a license, I can't work. And if I can't work, how am I going to pay back this stuff? It doesn't really make any sense, the way this business is now. Just because I got hit doesn't mean I'm not good at my job. It was a really crazy time. But the lady, I think, felt some pain for me, gave me a conditional license, and then it gave me another shot. So I did what I did best. I, went and hustled. And it was funny because, there's a lot to those stories, but I remember I just got my conditional license and I had been working for this organization and I was selling, and I think I had like a $35,000 check coming in. I mean, it was like really fast. I got right back into it. It was like I never missed a beat. I was doing really well. And they were supposed to cut the checks, and I was starving, man. It was hurting, and the company went bankrupt. And they didn't cut checks. They kept my money. And I remember going, man, and I was having to walk everywhere. At that time, I had lost my car. Actually, a girl had hit it, and I didn't even have my car. And I was walking everywhere. It was cold. I'm a Florida boy. I was in North Carolina. Snow was coming through. I barely had any clothes. I had socks over my hands. I was going down in really bad areas, riding the bus. I got robbed one night, watched a guy get shot in the face. An entire apartment complex burnt down. And it was funny because it's not funny, but looking back on it, the whole complex was on fire, and the bus couldn't get to the next station to connect because the fire was blocking it. So I was like, I can't wait. I'm going to run. So I got off the bus in my business attire, and I'm running. So it looks like when the cops pull up that I'm running away from the fire, like I'm the one that lit it and ran off. So they chase after me, and they catch me. And the guy's like, and I said, man, I can't miss this next stop, or I'm not going to get home till 2 a.m. I've got my nephew I've got to try to pick up. It was just some crazy times. A lot of the stuff I don't talk about it much, but yeah, it's good times.
So now you're a coach and a large room speaker, a professional speaker, I guess, and a mentor. And so how did we get there?
Yeah, good question. So I started my other companies. They started doing really well. I got back in the mortgage business again, and again was doing really well with that. Started diversifying my business model, learning from my mistakes. Being a speaker is something I think that's just always kind of came natural to me. I've never been scared in front of rooms. I've went through so much leadership and sales training that, I was just put in uncomfortable situations, and a lot of stuff that I did in sales all the time on the phones, paying attention to people. And I don't know, I'm beginning to think it was just a knack I had. And it just, people would want me to come speak here and speak here and speak here. And I started utilizing it more. But I realized that, people never remembered anything I said. They always remember how I made them feel. And I remember, telling my story and my experience of my motorcycle accident and everything I've been through, and just people connecting so much. And I thought, gosh, what a powerful way to help change people. They'd come up and say, man, your story. And I never wanted to be a speaker because I never thought my story was good enough. I didn't think I was a Zig Ziglar or a Les Brown or an Earl Nightingale. I just figured I was just some regular sales guy that could probably, spit words a little better than someone else. And it wasn't until probably about 4 years ago, I was running my mortgage company, and we were doing a lot of business up in Eglin and Tyndall, because I was an all-military mortgage company, just specifically working with military, only hiring military or direct family members of military. I wanted to change the way the business was done because it's still not done correctly, the way that's charged and the way it's sold. I wanted to change that model, so I really started focusing on that. And it was weird. The first thing I did is I established a company chaplain because my conversations turned more about mortgages into, guys that were going to commit suicide, or guys needed advice, or how do they do this? And it was really weird. It wasn't like just mortgages. It was all these issues that weren't being addressed. So I'm working with a real estate agent up in Panama City, a phenomenal lady, and she comes to me and tells me about this Vietnam vet that had his left leg amputated due to the fact of lack of transportation. He had gotten gangrene in it. At the time they would take a shuttle bus from Panama City to Pensacola, which was 2 hours to the VA. And they had to walk anywhere between 8 and 15 miles and sleep on park benches. And if they missed the bus, the VA, they would get another appointment for 3 to 6 months at the time. So it was just lack of transportation. He was, salty Vietnam vet. He didn't want to ask anybody for help, and ended up having his leg cut. He's just like, the heck with it, cut it off. I don't want to feel the pain anymore. It kind of blew my mind. It blew my mind because Navy Federal at the time had done $1 billion worth of business in Pensacola, had about 3,000 employees, and there was homeless vets on the side of the street. I just thought, even if you didn't care, it was just really bad marketing. You could clean it up and turn that into a good PR story, and if you actually care, that's a plus too. So I thought, man, a little brokerage, I'm going to do something. So I go back, I reach out to a couple of Marine Corps buddies of mine, and I said, hey, you know what? And this was before running across the country or hike across America was a commodity. It's almost like everybody's doing it now. But I said, why don't we hike for awareness, and let's start there. Like in any business, we'll market it. So the first year I did 22 days at 22 miles a day. Obviously, 22 veterans committed suicide was a branded number. So, we wanted to raise awareness about that. And I wanted to connect with the communities. I wanted to really find out what the issues are, what's going on with the VFWs and American Legions, where's money going, what are people doing with it. It was what I guess would be considered a success. We got to understand a little bit more about what's going on. But it was right around election time, I think right before Trump had gotten elected. It was just a crazy time through the Panhandle. And I don't know, I was probably about a week away from finishing up the hike. And I was like, you know what? I think we need to go across the country with this. I think we need to connect with different cities, different peoples, different people, different groups. So I fortunately partnered with a couple of great organizations, and I put together a 20-city, 9-state speaking tour where I ran over 3,000 miles across America, handing out and helping over 10,000 homeless veterans and hygiene kits with hygiene kits. I slept in homeless shelters along the way. We filmed a documentary so that we can engage and find out exactly what's going on. At the time, the whole project was self-funded by me and my mortgage company. We went into it with an approach of just trying to really understand what's going on. Traveled through all those cities. I ran marathons on Saturdays to engage in a bigger audience while I did that. So every morning I'd get up, I'd run 22 miles. I ran all 3 of my businesses. I made time for my daughter, give back to the homeless every day we were speaking, and I was helping feed or engage or give away or do something within the community. I was also going to speak to large corporations. That was part of their CSR platform. So I'd tell them about my story, and then afterwards we'd put together hygiene kits, and then we would go and distribute to the shelters and then also talk with them. It was a huge success. It was interesting to see different states, different counties, different people, and then get a good story of what truly is what's wrong with the country's problems. I always say, social media is a mirror. It's a mirror of what you want because it's a retargeted platform. The concept is to make you buy more things you like, not something different. So it doesn't allow you to open up your views like you do when you actually go and communicate with people. And going across the country in different places, talking to the homeless, and understanding who is homeless. Homelessness is something that hasn't even been rebranded. It's just insane. It's a market segment that hasn't been even approached from a marketing and branding standpoint, because when you think homeless, everyone thinks drugs, alcohol addiction, and panhandling, when in fact it's middle class, and it blows your mind because the actual homeless, the ones that aren't middle class, have it easier. They can go somewhere and get their teeth fixed. They can go somewhere and get health care. They can go somewhere. If they're really struggling, there is some great person out there willing to help. But if you're middle class, if you're actual working class parent, whether you're a single parent or a 2-family home, and you're out there paying your taxes and paying your health care and paying your child care and paying your car and paying your mortgage and living what is considered the marketing platform of the American dream, you're drowning. You're one crisis away from being truly homeless. You're one crisis away from losing your children, or one crisis away from a divorce. One financial hit, one medical hit, one job loss, one hurricane, one problem hits you, one divorce, and you're out on the streets and they're choking.
So you're saying that you're saying that there's a lot of people that are almost homeless. They have no savings. They have expenses that equal their income, and it just takes one even low-level hit to make them homeless.
You got it. Yeah. That's what I saw it in the mortgage industry every single day. You would review someone's income and you would see it all the time that they were just barely trying to buy a home, which is technically a liability, not an asset. They're just racking up more liabilities because of, perception of what it should be and lack of financial, understanding of what to do with your money. So anyways, we were really connected. It turned into a big thing. I ended up running a couple ultras, a couple 40-something half miles. I did 30 hours straight and 100 miles down the PCH towards the end. It was a great campaign. We connected with a lot of people. Year 3, I started really wondering. I saw a lot of children, a lot of homeless children, a lot of homeless teens. Started peeling it back, the layers, realizing that they're just here in Orlando and Orange County, there was almost 4,000 homeless teens and 1.7 million on any given night throughout the U.S. and over 935 attempt suicide a day, which is way bigger numbers than the veteran community. And it was just amazing. So I partnered with a great organization here in Claremont, the Pink Bow. I did 1,700 miles carrying a 100-pound pack every day, raising awareness for homeless teens, and helped that organization raise some funds. And then now this is my 4th year, and this one is basically the byproduct of the last 3 years. And what I've noticed is that I was just recently on Fox Business with Stuart Barney. It's been an amazing last 2 years. I wrote 2 #1 best-selling books. I just finished my 3rd book, which comes out in January. I was able to, effectively run my companies, speak across the nation, Forbes, USA Today, a lot of things that we're building because it seems like people want to hear more about leadership. And it's such a dying breed in our country today. It's gone. It's gone in our household. It's gone in our work environment. It's gone in the military community. So this year we put together an event, a grassroots event. We have about 180,000 people that we speak to. We speak in Norfolk on the USS Truman to about 4,000 sailors there, about another 1,200. Old Dominion, a couple of football games. Virginia Tech, I'm at the halftime show there, halftime in Old Dominion. We speak to NYPD, FDNY on the kickoff of 9/11. We have NAS, Mayport, Camp Lejeune, Paris Island. We have the White House, the Capitol, the Pentagon. Well, Pentagon's pending. So, and quite a few other places, and Independence Hall. Again, probably about 180,000 in total in a closed event venue. So they're here to hear my story and what I have to say, which is pretty cool. The idea this year is to truly bring back leadership. Bring back leadership. Yeah. In all aspects of everything that we do.
You mentioned kickoff of 9/11. Are you talking about the Tunnel to Towers race? Is that what you meant? Or?
No, this is our independent event. So we partnered with Rotary International and the Gary Sinise Foundation. All funds that we're raising this year will go towards the Gary Sinise Foundation RISE project. And then, of course, I'm a Rotarian, so we partnered with Rotary International to work with all the Rotaries along the East Coast to help support and talk about service before self. This is a 1,100-mile run. Where I will carry a 100-pound pack every day and attempt to break 2 world records, one being the fastest 1 mile carrying a 100-pound pack, and that'll be in the middle of the Old DU game. And then I will run the fastest marathon carrying a 100-pound pack after I've completed the 1,100 miles at the end in NASA Space Coast. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's
when
kind of
does it start?
It starts on 9/11. So it'll be from 9/11 all the way until I think December 14th is when I finally finish with everything.
That's amazing. And so your 1,100 miles runs down the East Coast.
Yep.
Awesome. Wow. That's amazing. So much to circle back on and talk about here, but we're already out of time.
Yeah.
So please give contact information, just mention your book if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything social media is at TShane Johnson. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all you got to do is type in that handle. If you want to view any of our websites, it's tshaneinspires.com and hikeacrossamerica.com.
Very cool. And your most recent book is that
it's Done by 2:30. The name of the book is Done by 2:30. It's about my daughter and I. The context of the book is talking about how to develop your life and business balanced where you can be done by 2:30 every day to pick your little one up from school.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the previous book that got a lot of notoriety was Hike Across America, 3,000 Miles for Your Why. Awesome. TShane, oh my gosh, we got to have you back for about 6 more episodes and dig down every one of those rabbit holes. I really appreciate what you're doing out there. It's incredibly inspiring. So any parting words? I'm kind of speechless.
For one, thank you so much. I mean, this is what it takes is conversations like ours between our groups and organizations, and know that there's no divide, and that we get out there and show them that, listen, it doesn't have to be a woe is me story. We can turn this around and be the foundation of what our country really should be. Just great hardcore veterans and Americans committing to a lifelong service before self platform.
Man, everybody get out there, meet TShane, and find out what his website and the man is all about. Thank you so much, and Godspeed down the East Coast, my friend.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.